What's up, guys? This is Chris from DraftDashboard.com.
Here are my DFS picks for MLB opening day, April 1st.
These picks apply for DraftKings and FanDuel. Before I get started, please drop a like on this video and hit that red subscribe button and hit that bell icon so you don't miss our new videos.
In this video, I'm going to go over my top picks for today's MLB slate.
And if you stick around to the very end of this video, we'll use the Draft Dashboard tools to make a DFS lineup using the picks we just made.
Okay guys, opening day, let's take a look at the pitcher position. I like Clayton Kershaw pitching against the Colorado Rockies. Clayton Kershaw, he is pitching his best ball versus switch hitters. There's no switch hitters here tonight, but he does only give up a .604 OPS versus righties. So he pitches a little bit better versus righties as he does lefties, and he's facing 5 righties here tonight. The Rockies are only batting a .286 batting average versus Clayton Kershaw. They've only hit 28 of his last 98 pitches. And you're going to save a little bit of salary with this stud pick here. He's only $9,000 FanDuel salary, and he's $500 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 29.7 fantasy points here tonight, so he's a great value play for the money that you're paying for him. Of course, he's a stud pick, but you do save a little bit of salary on this one, so you can open up that lineup to those batters here on opening day. Now, he has an ERA of 2.16, and his record was 6-2 last year, pitching an average of 89 pitches per game. He scored 38 fantasy points per game on the season last year, and he scored 35, 49, and 15 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Clayton Kershaw here versus the Colorado Rockies. Okay, now if you're really looking to save on salary at the pitcher position so you can stack your batters, take a look at Brad Keller pitching against the Texas Rangers. Brad Keller, he's giving up a .425 OPS versus righties, and he's facing 4 righties, and now he doesn't even pitch that bad versus lefties. He gives up a .695 OPS versus lefties, and he's facing 5 lefties. Now he is 0 for 13 versus the Rangers, but that's a super small sample size. He's only $7,600 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,700 less on DraftKings. He has an ERA of 2.47. His record was 5-3 on the season last year, pitching 95 pitches per game. So he pitches a ton of pitches, and he averaged 30 fantasy points per game on the season last year, scoring 43, 12, and 43 fantasy points in his last 3 games of the season last year. And he's projected at 17.6 fantasy points here on opening day. So I like Brad Keller as a low salary, high risk, high reward pitcher play here on opening day.
Before I continue with the picks, I'm excited today because we added a new contest for everyone watching. If you want to enter the drawing for $100 PayPal, all you need to do is like this video, hit that subscribe button, and make a quick comment below to be entered into the drawing. We'll reply to a random comment and let you know that you won, and then we'll send you $100 PayPal. So it's that easy, and we pick a new winner every Saturday and announce them in our video. So get your comment in now so I can add another entry for you.
Okay, let's take a look at the catcher position. I like Ryan Jeffers with a 29% batting advantage over Brandon Woodruff. Ryan Jeffers bats 14% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .830 OPS versus righties. And Brandon Woodruff, he's giving up a .628 OPS versus righties, 15% worse than his pitch to lefties. And Ryan Jeffers is 2 for 2. He has 2 singles with a 2 OPS versus Woodruff. He's $2,200 DraftKings salary and $200 more on FanDuel. So this is a nice value play at the catcher position. He's projected at 9.6 fantasy points. He scored an average of 5 fantasy points per game on the season last year. So I like Ryan Jeffers as a low salary, high risk, high reward catcher play. Okay, let's take a look at the first base position. I like Ryan Mountcastle from the Baltimore Orioles, and he's got a 52% batting advantage over Nathan Eovaldi. Ryan Mountcastle bats 18% better versus righty pitchers, batting a .883 OPS versus righties. And Nathan Eovaldi, he throws 34% worse to righties than he does his other pitches, giving up a .962 OPS versus righties. And Ryan Mountcastle is 2 for 3 with a 1.334 OPS versus Eovaldi. He's $3,000 FanDuel salary and $900 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.3 fantasy points, and he scored an average of 10 fantasy points per game on the season last year, with 9 and 7 fantasy points in his last 2 games. So I like Ryan Mountcastle here versus Nathan Eovaldi. Okay, another pick at the first base position is Bobby Dalbec with a 10% batting advantage over John Means. Bobby Dalbec bats 15% better versus lefties as he does righties, batting a 1.062 OPS versus lefties. And John Means is giving up a .725 OPS versus righties. Bobby Dalbec is $2,700 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,300 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 10.9 fantasy points, and he scored an average of 12 fantasy points per game, scoring 9 and 22 fantasy points in his last 2 games last year. So I like Bobby Dalbec here versus John Means. Okay, let's take a look at the second base position. I like Chris Taylor with a 24% batting advantage over German Marquez. Chris Taylor bats 22% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .885 OPS versus righties. And German Marquez is giving up a .661 OPS versus righties. Chris Taylor is 2 for 7, batting a .286 batting average and a .786 OPS versus Marquez. He's $3,000 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,300 more on DraftKings. Projected at 10 fantasy points, he scored 10 fantasy points per game on the season last year, ending with 25 and 3 fantasy points in his last 2 games. So I like Chris Taylor here versus German Marquez.
Real quick, guys, I got great news. For a limited time, we're offering a full 30-day trial to Draft Dashboard. You can try all of our DFS tools for all sports. You can try the Position Optimizer, where you can see the top players ranked for each position. And we added a new Player Trends tool, where you can see the top salary differences between FanDuel and DraftKings. It's a really good tool to help you pick out value for the site that you're playing on. Oh, and if you're tired of doing research every day, we just added a cheat sheet that shows hand-picked plays for the slate. No confusing stat lines, no headaches, just a simple cheat sheet that shows the absolute best players for your lineups.
Okay, who do we have at the third base position? I like Mike Moustakas with a 47% batting advantage over Jack Flaherty. Mike Moustakas bats 24% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .860 OPS versus righties. And Jack Flaherty, he pitches 23% worse than his pitch to righties, giving up a .746 OPS versus lefties. And Mike Moustakas is 3 for 10, so he's batting a .300 with a 1.117 OPS versus Flaherty. He's only $3,100 FanDuel salary, and he's $900 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 10 fantasy points. He averaged 9 fantasy points per game on the season, and he closed out the season last year with 3 and 3 fantasy points in his last 2 games. So I like Mike Moustakas here versus Jack Flaherty. Okay, let's take a look at the shortstop position. I think you gotta pay up here at the shortstop position. I like Fernando Tatis Jr. with a 5% batting advantage over Madison Bumgarner. Fernando Tatis Jr., he's batting a .801 OPS versus lefties, and Madison Bumgarner pitches 24% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a 1.014 OPS versus righties. So Fernando Tatis Jr. is 6 for 11, batting a .545 batting average and a 1.825 OPS versus Bumgarner. Those are monster numbers, and he's $4,300 FanDuel salary and $1,400 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 12.6 fantasy points. He averaged 15 fantasy points per game on the season last year, closing the season out with 6, 3, and 9 fantasy points in his last 3 games. So I like Fernando Tatis Jr. here versus Madison Bumgarner. Okay, moving on to the outfield position. I like Will Myers from the San Diego Padres with a 37% batting advantage over that same pitcher, Madison Bumgarner. Will Myers bats a 1.042 OPS versus lefties, and Madison Bumgarner, as we know, pitches 24% worse to righties as he does lefties, giving up a 1.014 OPS versus righties. And Will Myers is 9 for 50. So that is not a good batting average, only a .180 batting average, but he is batting a .777 OPS versus Bumgarner. He has 4 home runs in there. So I think this is a decent pick if you want to save some salary at the outfield position so you can fit in one of those studs at the other positions. Will Myers is $2,900 FanDuel salary, and he's $1,800 more on DraftKings. He's projected at 10.6 fantasy points, and he scored an average of 12 fantasy points per game on the season last year, scoring 10, 12, and 6 fantasy points in the last 3 games. So I like Will Myers here versus Madison Bumgarner. Okay, and another salary-saving pick at the outfield position is Jason Hayward with a 36% batting advantage over Chad Kuhl. Jason Hayward bats 39% better versus righty pitchers. He's batting a .937 OPS versus righties. And Chad Kuhl is giving up a .731 OPS versus lefties. Jason Hayward is 10 for 20, batting a .500 batting average and a 1.2 OPS versus Kuhl. So those are great numbers, and he's only $2,600 FanDuel salary. He's $1,200 more on DraftKings, projected at 9.6 fantasy points, averaged 9 fantasy points per game on the season last year, and he scored 7 and 12 fantasy points in his last 2 games. So I like Jason Hayward here versus Chad Kuhl.
If you want to try all these daily fantasy tools for yourself, click the link in the description below this video or just go to draftdashboard.com. You can use our DFS lineup optimizer to build quality lineups using our picks and your own custom player pool. Click the link in the description below this video and try all these daily fantasy tools right now. Thanks so much for watching. Oh, and don't forget to subscribe to this channel and hit that bell icon so you can get instant updates whenever we post a new video. Thank you so much for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please smiggity smash that like button and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Oh, and please comment below with your favorite player for this NBA slate. I love to hear what you guys have to think. Thanks again, and good luck.